right. I think we are live. Let me double check everything to make sure that we're good. Welcome to the stream, guys. I'm double checking right now. Make sure everything is good. We're a little bit different. We got a remote interview, guys, with the legend himself, David Icke. Dave, welcome to the show, man. Happy to have you on. It's an honor to have you on. You've been highly requested by a lot of our supporters, so I'm happy that we can finally make this thing happen. So I know who you are, but for the people that might not be familiar, can you introduce yourself real quick to the people?
Yeah, I started out as a mainstream journalist. I was a footballer before that, and then transformed into anything but a mainstream journalist in 1990. And I've been, for the last, just going into my 36th year, investigating this conspiracy, which is multi-leveled, ever since. And I started off in the early 1990s, covering what I call the global cult, which is this global network of secret societies that interlock. And I've gone on expanding from there. And it's interesting when you've been doing it for so long that you can see events like current events in a very different light.
So obviously, and I'll kind of just go into how I found out about you and how you were correct on some things that they ended up banning you for. I remember the interview with London Real back when the pandemic was kicking off. You're sitting there and you're talking about how COVID was a control mechanism. It was BS. And I remember everyone was freaking out, right? At this point in America, at least, and you could tell me what was going on in the UK. People were freaking out. They didn't know what was going on. Everyone's buying like toilet paper for some odd reason. Stores were clearing out of food and water. It was literally like everyone going wild. And to me, I always thought like, man, this is some BS. It's kind of weird. But watching that interview kind of reaffirmed my belief system that, man, this is some bullshit. And then next thing I know, you and the London Real got banned from YouTube. I knew right then and there. Go ahead.
Yeah, and everything else. What happened is that when this COVID hoax was played, it really started to appear in the West in terms of a focus of attention in like early January of 2020. I knew it was a scam, and the reason I knew that, going back to what I said earlier of doing this a long time, is because I could see how it would be used as an excuse for a great part of this global cult agenda, moving closer and closer to a global dystopia. And so I knew it was a scam. It was only a question of what kind of scam. And I had a long, detailed email sent to me in March of 2020, when it was really starting to kick off, from a medical scientist who gave me chapter and verse about how it was a scam and how they could play it. And what he said in that email is exactly what happened. I then, as a result of that, started looking around for anyone else that was saying something similar and was challenging the existence of the COVID virus, because this medical scientist said to me, you don't need a virus to pull this off. And I became very convinced by the time I did that London Real interview on April the 6th of 2020, that actually the whole thing was a scam. And the reason for it that I could see even then was that there was a fake vaccine coming in, a fake vaccine as it turned out to be, but a vaccine coming in to put into enormous numbers of people a content that wasn't good for humanity, shall we say. And so when I started talking about that, the media, the mainstream media in this country, they spun it, as did YouTube, that I was saying that that 5G was causing the the virus.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't saying that at all. And Joe Rogan's repeated this as well. I wasn't saying that at all. I was saying that electromagnetic fields as powerful as 5G can generate symptoms, flu-like symptoms that the COVID virus was said to have.
Mm-hmm.
But I wasn't saying it was causing it. I was saying it didn't exist.
Gotcha.
And as this unfolded, what that medical scientist told me started to unfold almost word for word what he told me. Because I know, early on they said that it was a virus from a wet market in Wuhan.
Yeah.
And this is the thing about conspiracies and alternative media, if you like. There's a way of playing these things in which you really want everyone to believe your official story. That's what you want ideally. But especially now with the alternative media that's expanded, it didn't exist when I started out and for a long time afterwards. They know that not everyone's going to buy the official story. Mm-hmm. They're going to be looking for a conspiracy. So what you do, because the whole conspiracy is a perceptual mind game. It's perceptual trickery. If you control someone's perceptions, you control their behavior. People behaved as they did through COVID because their perceptions were what they were, because they believed the nonsense they were being told. So when you look at the way that we were led to believe that it was a wet market, lots of people bought that.
Yep.
Lots of people didn't. So they were looking for a conspiracy. So what you do is you give them one, mm-hmm. but it's just the wrong conspiracy. Mm-hmm. So you let them think that it was released from a Wuhan lab. But when you then start looking at what happened during COVID, I mean, some very interesting things come to light. First of all, if you release a bioweapon, the bioweapon's the frickin' fake vaccine. If you release a bioweapon virus, then you don't have to do anything else because it's going to do its job. So suddenly you had a test, the PCR test, being used, which its creator, Kerry Mullis, an American chemist, said cannot tell if you're sick. But they used it to test people, and if it was positive, and because they manipulated the test in what they call the cycles of amplification, they got enormous numbers of positive tests. That gave you your cases. If you were positive, you were a case, even though you were perfectly well and there was nothing wrong with you. At the same time that COVID came in and was everywhere, apparently, worldwide, flu disappeared. And for that whole period, it disappeared. And suddenly it's back now. Where's it been? On holiday? What's going on? And then you have your cases, and you also bring in something else, because what you want to do is lock down everybody. Now, normally what you would do would isolate the sick if you had a proper pandemic. But that's not enough. They don't want just to isolate the sick, they want to isolate everyone. So they brought in this this idea about the fact that you could pass on the virus even though you felt perfectly well, a symptomatic transmission. And as a result, they could say, well, everyone's got to be locked down because You can pass it on even if you feel okay. So now what you need is your deaths. And by the way, this was all in this long email from this medical scientist in March of 2020. So how do you do that? I know. What you do is you introduce this ludicrous rule that if you test positive with a test not testing for the virus and die of any other cause within 28 days, longer in other cases, then COVID-19 goes on your death certificate. So now people who died of road accidents, falling off their motorbike, falling down the stairs, and as one coroner pointed out in America, a fifth of her COVID-19 deaths actually died of gunshot wounds. But COVID-19 goes on your death certificate and the death numbers go up and up and up. They were even testing people after they died to increase the numbers. If you have a real bioweapon virus, then you don't need to give financial incentives to American hospitals to diagnose it. What was happening is that hospitals were being given per patient $4,600 if they diagnose regular pneumonia, $13,000 per patient if they diagnose COVID-19 pneumonia, and $39,000 for everyone they put on a ventilator that would almost certainly kill them. So you add all these things together, and there's so much more. I wrote a book in 2021 called The Answer, in which I absolutely, in fine detail, it's a thick book, demolished this whole story. And what you have is a desire by this global cult for people to believe they're not bothered what form it takes to believe there is a virus, because then there's something to deal with. If you realize that it's all a scam, then lockdowns, masks, all of it have no justification whatsoever. And so in so many ways, those who are pushing and buying the Wuhan lab leak are pushing an agenda that this global cult is very very happy about. And it's amazing to me, Myron, that you have this alternative arena that's been pointing out all this time, oh, you can't trust the CIA, etc. And now they're quoting the CIA saying, oh, the CIA's confirmed that it's a Wuhan lab leak. Well, you're going to believe them then, are you? So the whole thing is a scam to get that fake vaccine, which was, of course, in the pipeline, sitting there waiting a long time before, into people on a vast scale. And we have Donald Trump still to this day talking about the fact that he's the father of the fake vaccine, with all the death and destruction it's caused. But of course he isn't. It's a military operation. That's what it was. And so many people fell for it. And because fear is the currency of control. And if you fall for it, if you don't stay calm and do your research calmly, if you panic, oh my God, then they got you. And that's how they got so many people during COVID. And so many people are still having the bloody vaccine, staggeringly.
So I have a question for you, David. Thank you so much for illustrating that. I really didn't want to interrupt at all. But so I saw you just did an interview not too long ago with Jake Shields, a good friend of mine. And yeah. Jake had a guest on that referred to a guy named, his name is A.O. Kamathi, shout out to him. He brought a guest on named, he mentioned a guy named J. Bart Glassman, who worked at NID/NIH. And basically he worked across the hall from Anthony Fauci for 30 years. And he wrote a peer-reviewed paper about how the Mossad was involved in the creation of COVID-19 and as a bioweapon. Have you heard about that angle? Or
Yeah, I saw a clip of the interview.
Yes.
That
What are your
you
thoughts
did
on that?
with Jake. Well, I go back to what I've just said. Where the hell is the virus? Where is it? In early January of 2020, a guy called Christian Drosten, who I wouldn't trust to tell me the time in a room full of clocks, a German virologist, he suddenly appeared with a protocol for the PCR test, which its creator said can't tell if you're sick. And in next to no time, without any peer review, the World Health Organization, of course, global cult to its DNA, suddenly started recommending it. And this protocol was used around the world. The whole thing was a scam from the start. And, you had the Gates simulation, or it's called Event 201, in the run up to it. And what the simulation was the prerequisite to a real simulation, which was the idea that there was this deadly virus going around. I mean, one of the things that I would say is this. I've been saying for a long time that the Mao revolution in China was a global cult revolution. For this reason, they wanted a country of a vast population that could, because of the control of that country through that system, would incubate and develop a means of mass control, which, when incubated and perfected, would be played out across the world. And what do we have in China? We have the social credit system. We have phenomenal, fantastic numbers of cameras that can find people in minutes. And where did COVID was supposedly come out of? China. And what happened as a result of that? The West became more and more like China and has gone on being so. And, the thing I would say is that this global cult does not have borders. There are no countries. That's for public consumption. It crosses all borders. It's a network of secret societies that operate in every country. So on one level, it can play out that China and the West are at loggerheads. Oh, my goodness me. And at one level, they might be. The people involved might think that. But you go deep enough and they're the same. They're on the same side. They're just playing different roles. So, for instance, we have seen these tech oligarchs like Bezos and Zuckerberg, who were supposed to be, Democrats and against Trump, who've suddenly now, not only them either, have circled the wagons around Trump. And the reason for that is that they're on the same side. This is what people miss. And they're just playing different roles. So Zuckerberg played the bad guy from a perspective of freedom, censorship. And Bezos played the bad guy, owner of the Washington Post. And Gates played the bad guy. And now they're all coming together because there is a common route, a common agenda that's been unfolding all the way through this. And I have this phrase I use, know the outcome and you'll see the journey. Because if you don't know what the outcome is planned to be, then daily events become just random, often bewildering. Why are they doing this? Why are they doing that? Why has that happened? But if you know what the outcome is planned to be, then you suddenly realize that these apparently random events are very clear stepping stones, what I call the totalitarian tiptoe, towards that outcome. And if you're not streetwise, so much of the alternative media is not streetwise. And a key reason for that is it's still seeing things in left, bad, right, good, the puppet show. It's not like that. We live in one-party states. We actually have a one-party world if you go deep enough. So what we're seeing in current events is this. You know, this control agenda has gone through many and various stages as it's got more and more extreme. And as one stage is superseded, that has faded and society has changed into the new phase. And so the phase we're looking at now, and this is the real outcome they're looking for, is a society globally, eventually, that is totally controlled by artificial intelligence, humans with a very, very small input. And the fusion of artificial intelligence with the human brain and the human body, which is what people like Ray Kurzweil have been talking about for years. And they've even given a date that they want this to be in place, and that's 2030. So what we have now is a Trump administration that is basically going to go through to 2030 virtually. And so what they are looking for, this global cult, in this period, is a transformation of human society into this AI dystopia. Now, if you have a status quo with the institutions of government as they've been created by this global cult, it's served them very well up to this point. But if you want to transform the status quo, then what you have to do is destroy it. And what we're seeing now with what's happening in America with Elon Musk is the destruction of that old system so this new AI system can come in. And that's why all the AI oligarchs have circled the wagons around Trump. And it's vital that that old system is destroyed. And we're seeing it happen at a very, very fast rate. And it's not a coincidence that 2 days into the Trump administration, he was in the White House wheeling out Larry Ellison and Sam Altman with this Stargate, ultimately they say $500 billion AI operation, because that's what's planned to take over. And so let me just put this in another perspective too. There's something that I call designer manipulation. So if you try to manipulate all the different belief systems in the same way, then you're going to get some, but you're not going to get others. They're going to push back on you. So what you do is you tailor your manipulation to particular belief systems. So if we look at this outcome of the AI control of society, the woke left have pretty much gone with it and weren't pushing back on it. But what's become the right now, but actually the alternative media, was pushing back on it. And a lot of people, enormous number of people in America, who are part of that pushback mentality are supporting Trump. They see him as the savior. So you've got to target them, because between now and 2030, you've got to get them on board with something they've been pushing back on, the AI agenda. So what you do is you bring in Elon Musk. You bring him in. I've been tracking him for years before he bought Twitter, and you allow him to buy Twitter. It's interesting to me, you know, how people, you just think in black and white when it's not like that. You've got to think outside the box, outside of the black and white, otherwise you'll get scammed. So here's the question. It's accepted, I know from my experience, that Twitter before Elon Musk was controlled by what they call the deep state. It was dictating who could be on it and who couldn't. It had what it wanted, control of the information flow. And then when he bought Twitter, he puts out these Twitter files confirming, not as many as he could, but confirming, yeah, the deep state controlled Twitter and all that. Right, okay. So my question is, so the deep state was in exactly the position it wanted then. It controlled Twitter. Yeah. So why did they allow it to be bought by someone alleging himself to be, not true, a free speech absolutist? So because I'd been tracking this guy and he was ticking all the boxes of the World Economic Forum agenda long before he bought Twitter, I knew it was a scam again. The question was, what form does it take? And it didn't take long to find out, because suddenly the alternative media that was pushing back on Musk, calling him a transhumanist often, and saying he was a danger with his AI agenda, they suddenly started giving him a free ride, and they've not only done that ever since, but he's now some kind of God king who's taken over the government. And so you then look at what he's doing. He's destroying the status quo. And because, and this is one of the greatest ways that people are manipulated, telling people what they want to hear. I know from my experience over the years that if you tell people what they don't want to hear, then the door is slammed shut with a padlock on it. You tell them what they want to hear, and the door's already swinging open. Why? Because they want it to be true. And what we've been seeing is an explosion of telling people what they want to hear, so that they will support the agenda. And I said before Trump came to office, weeks and weeks before he came to office this time, that what you're going to see when he gets into power is a blitzkrieg of reasons for his natural support base to think we're winning, to say, hey, he's doing it, we're so back. But that's the cover. And they're not destroying the system to fight the globalists. They're destroying the system for the globalist AI agenda to be brought in to replace what they're destroying. And if we don't see that, then what we do is we eulogize and almost worship, in some cases, the very people who are shafting us. And what you're going to see as this unfolds is you're going to see this AI agenda come in and come in and come in and come in. So when you look at Peter Thiel, one of the so-called PayPal mafia, along with Elon Musk, and Peter Thiel is a co-founder of Palantir. Now, he's a Trump supporter and connected to this network of tech oligarchs, big time. But Peter Thiel is a co-founder of Palantir, which is a company seed funded by the CIA to start it off, that supplies the military and intelligence networks, not only in America either, with surveillance and data processing control technology. And I hear that J.D. Vance is anti-globalist, like Trump. Well, J.D. Vance is a political protege through funding of Peter Thiel. And Peter Thiel is on the steering committee of the globalist Bilderberg Group. And Alex Karp, a fellow founder of Palantir, is also on the steering committee of the Bilderberg Group. And you look at the connections and you see they go into this whole global elite, World Economic Forum type network. And what we are seeing, Myron, is the Great Reset. You're watching it now. The Great Reset is what? Articulated by Klaus Schwab. It's the transformation of human society into a totally controlled dystopia based on artificial intelligence. And to do that, to bring that in, the status quo has to go. And that's what Musk and Trump are doing now while people cheer. They won't be cheering eventually, I'll tell you.
I do want to say this, because as you were talking about, the AI takeover, I find it interesting. And you mentioned J.D. Vance. He just gave a speech not too long ago in Europe where he talked about, just like you had said, the strategy, give them what they want to hear. Hey, Europe, you guys are too pro-censorship. You guys are censoring people. But at the same time, he called for deregulation on AI, right? And how AI is not going to take away jobs and that it's going to help become more efficient, et cetera. Because I listened to the speech and I thought it was very interesting. And then, like you said, when it comes to J.D. Vance, Peter Thiel was this guy that got him jobs, at different think tanks. He put him in position to become a senator. He got him on with Trump, and he's pretty much funded and allowed J.D. Vance to thrive politically. And a lot of people don't know about this when it comes to who backed J.D. Vance and who Peter Thiel is. But yeah, what you're talking about with the Bilderberg Group, him founding Palantir with Alex Karp, and then the fact that Palantir has been instrumental in what's going on in Gaza because they are very pro-Israel. With Palantir and Alex Karp, because Alex Karp is a hardcore Zionist, so is Peter Thiel. When you start to look at these people are all globalists, all of them.
Well, I've been researching the control by, shall we say, forces within Israel since the mid-1990s. I think I started in 1994. I've been cancelled as a result since 1995 when my first book came out on the subject. And, it's so central. I'm not talking about Jewish people in general. I'm talking about this core control that works out of Israel. It's so central to this global cult that one way of observing events and judging what's going on is to see how many Zionist-centric people there are in a particular administration. And if you look at the Trump administration, it's unbelievable. Mind you, so was Biden's, so was Obama's. I mean, and on it goes. But this Trump administration, you've got a defense secretary, a secretary of state, a Middle East czar, on and on it goes, national security advisor, UN ambassador. I mean, it never stopped.
DHS secretary.
Absolutely Israel centric.
All of them.
The moment he came in, he immediately took off any knocks on weapons being supplied to Israel. He starts talking about getting rid of the Palestinians from Gaza, which is a long-term Israeli plan. And he deletes sanctions against settlers in the West Bank who are stealing Palestinian land there in the occupied West Bank and property. And, you know, then you look at Trump and you look at Sheldon Adelson, who gave him something like $200 million in his first 2 election campaigns. And the part of that deal, because don't come without strings, was that he would move the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, and he would recognize the Golan Heights, Syrian land, as Israeli. He did both. Now we've had Miriam Adelson, Adelson's wife, who has given Trump at least $100 million in this election campaign. And part of that deal is for the American Trump administration eventually to recognize the annexation by Israel of the West Bank. And this is all obvious and in your face. And the reason that it is because Trump is owned by them. That's the point. You look at Musk, get over to Israel after October the 7th. Get your ass over here.
They dragged him to Auschwitz, too.
Yeah, he goes.
Yeah.
And then he's with Ben Shapiro at Auschwitz not long afterwards.
Yep.
These people are owned by this network. And therefore, they put into the positions of power in the Secretary of States, etc., people who are also like that. I mean, you've got Mike Huckabee, the ambassador now to Israel, who won't even call it the West Bank. He calls it Samaria and Judea. And he says there is no occupation. The land is Israel's because of the fact the Old Testament says so, written by who knows when, in who knows what circumstances. I mean, the whole thing's insane. And I look at the so much of the alternative media, that central core of it that I say has been hijacked, and they're all pretty much vehement pro-Israel in terms of Israel right or wrong. And this is another point, Myron. Why? Because I started seeing this after COVID, where we've talked about. I started seeing, because I've been doing this a long time, and I'm aware of a lot of things, and I saw these mainstreamers in the wake of the COVID coming out of the mainstream and hijacking the alternative media, in the sense that they were getting all the algorithmic support and they were getting the financial support. And what kind of was intriguing to me is that so many of them bought the bloody COVID hoax. There's a guy called Bret Weinstein, whose brother Eric is a business associate of Peter Thiel.
He hates me, has me blocked on X, that pussy.
Did he?
Yeah, he's a bitch, but sorry. Keep going.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know, don't you? I mean, Mark Andreessen blocked me, and I never even mentioned him up to that point.
I've never mentioned Bret Weinstein either. I never mentioned him not once, but he blocked me everywhere. I was like, what the fuck? But yeah, we'll continue. Sorry.
That is very telling, mate.
Yeah.
So there's a video, you can see it online, where he's describing during COVID the way that he protected himself. So he's sitting there in his home, and he's got a red bandana around his neck. In fact, he pulled it up over his nose, and he's got glasses on. And he said that what he did is he kept this red bandana around his neck all day when he was at home, because then if anyone knocked the door, he could put it up immediately when he answered the door. He said when he went out, he put glasses on to stop the virus going in his eyes. And he wore gloves, and he would spray his car. And when he came back to his car, he'd spray the steering wheel. And then when he got home, he'd take all his clothes off that he's been out in and have them washed. And suddenly he's on the bloody Carlson podcast as a go-to bloke for COVID. It's extraordinary.
He's been on a bunch of big shows, this Weinstein guy. He's been on Piers, he's been on Rogan, he's been on so many different big broadcasts. I'm like, who the fuck is this guy?
Exactly. But this is the point I would make. Why did that happen? Why has that happened? I contacted Alex Jones, must be 18 months more ago now. And I said, it was via a producer, not directly. And I said, have you seen this alternative media? It's being taken over by these people. And what came back through the producer was, yeah, Alex can see it, but he doesn't know what to do about it, right? So I said, well, tell him to give me a call and let's talk. Never came. And the next thing I know, he's interviewing these people who I was identifying as the hijackers. And some will know it, and some will just see it as a main chance. But I've seen Rogan become a propagandist. I've seen Brand become a propagandist. I've seen Carlson become a propagandist. The Weinsteins, all of these people. Because if you are an alternative journalist or even a journalist, you hold power to account no matter who they are. If they're Democrat or Republican, doesn't matter. You hold them to account and you hold them by the same standards. When you are saying the deep state is the left, nonsense, it's a one-party state, but the right's the good guys, which you don't investigate in the same way, don't investigate at all, you just promote and propagandize, you're not a journalist. But this is what I was going to say. Why did this happen? Because the target mentality between now and coming into 2030 is the pushbackers who were before in terms of the AI agenda and the oligarch agenda. And understandably and absolutely right, there's no way in the world you are going to influence them and manipulate their perceptions through the mainstream media, because they have seen it, they know it's lying, and they know you can't trust it. So what you do in this period is you take over the mainstream. There's still some great alternative journalists, They're just not in that central core with all the funding and the algorithmic support. But you take over that which this pushbacker mentality, as was, will listen to. And that's why you've seen this transformation from the mainstream media to the alternative media and podcasters and quote influencers. And what you've had all these people not questioning Trump and Musk as they did, well, not so much Trump, but Musk as they did before, but eulogizing them and promoting them and propagandizing them. And they are propaganda arms of this destruction of the old system to be replaced by an even more extreme dystopian AI version.
So, go ahead, Fresh. Go ahead.
Real quick. So, David, you mentioned control in the agenda, right? Which I 100% believe in that.
Yeah.
AI is so important to establishment because for them, AI is like the new future you mentioned before. So my thing is like, how would we counteract this? Because I think what's happening now with tech jobs being lost, people losing their jobs to AI, by the way, what's the alternative? Because right now, that's where we're going. How do we stop this from happening if we can at all?
Well, I'll come to that in a second, but the points about to mention this, and then I'll come to that. If you remember, Elon Musk many years ago now, and I'm saying this because of a word you've basically not used it directly, but you've indicated it's inevitable at the moment.
Yeah.
Okay, so he came out years ago and said AI could be the end of humanity.
Yes.
Humanity as we know it, that's true. But you see, what you learn about this global cult is it plays the long game. Things that happen a long way back actually are for a reason that impacts upon current events. So he was setting himself up as the AI skeptic, except actions are what you see and look at, not words. They're easy. Ever since that, he's rolled out more and more and more and more of AI. But what happened eventually, you see, what you've got is this outcome they want, which is the AI-controlled society in totality and the fusion of AI and humanity so that AI becomes the human mind and human emotional responses, the hive mind. And so what you are looking at with this pushbacker group, as was, is you've got to bring them on board. Now, if you're pushing back on something and you want to stop it, okay, and that's a certain mentality. We've got to stop this. But if you can be persuaded that it's inevitable, then suddenly you go from stopping it to mitigating its effect. And so what you've had from Elon Musk, it's all a mind game, is AI is inevitable. And so we have to, and AI is going to become far more intelligent than humans. Elon Musk, I rest my case. And instead of saying we got to stop this, it's we've got to fuse with AI. This is Musk, because if we don't, then AI will take over and humans will disappear. Now, okay, so where does that lead, Mr. Musk? Well, it leads to a fusion of humans and AI, okay? And this coming the other way through Klaus Schwab, Bill Gates, Ray Kurzweil, and all these people, the direct route, saying, oh, it will be great, we'll be gods. Where does that finish up, Mr. Musk? Well, it finishes up with a fusion of AI and human. Yeah, exactly. So what you've got, design and manipulation, is two ways of manipulating different belief systems to the same end. And that's what's going on. And, you know, in terms of what we can do about this, well, you know, I see people posting on the internet, you know, quite regularly, that David Icke, he never talks about solutions. I've been talking about them for 30 bloody years plus.
35 plus.
But they don't want to hear the solutions because it means they've got to get their arse in gear.
Yeah.
But what I would say is this, okay, we're told there's 8 billion people on the planet. Okay, I don't know who counts them. But the number of people in full knowledge of what they're doing in terms of this agenda of dystopian control is, by comparison with the 8 billion, tiny, absolutely tiny. And there's no way mathematically that those numbers should be able to dictate to 8 billion and dictate the direction of human society. The reason they can, multiple reasons. One, people give their power away to authority. And the other thing is divide and rule. They don't care what belief system you have, whether it's religious, whether it's political, whatever, so long as you have one rigidly, because then they can play your belief system off against all the others. So the population, the targeted population, then is fighting itself, leaving the manipulators to go on their merry way without challenge. And then there's this thing called politics. You know, in my books, I've charted through the human history how they started off with like royal bloodlines and inherited power through your genetics. And then eventually humanity matured enough to not want that anymore. So the global cult had a problem, because the global cult goes way back, way, way back. It had a problem. How do we still control the people? So what they developed was something called politics, and particularly a politics in which one or two, sometimes three, but mostly one or two parties have any chance of forming the government. And they persuade the population that they're free now. Ooh, free. It's not that this king or queen is dictating to you anymore. Oh, no, you have a vote every 4 or 5 years. So that then the politicians tell you in the election campaign what you want to hear.
Also,
get it to separate. To do all along, right?
They pretend to be separate too.
Exactly. So what the whole point of it is that we have massive, unstoppable collective power. But what this cult wants is for you to give it away to their people.
Yeah.
So they've invented politics. And this is why we live in one-party states. Oh, do you want to vote for them? Okay, all right. Well, you want to vote for them because we own them as well. And so it goes. Left, right, left, right, left, right. People think, oh, no, I'm fed up with the left. I'm going for the right this time. I'm fed up with the right. I'm going for the left. Same people, one step back in the shadows, are running it, whatever.
Yep.
So this is where I'm going. I reckon about, because politics is about getting you to give your power to a few people every 4 or 5 years so that they do what this shadow government tells them to do or manipulates them to do, depending on whether they know what's going on or whether they don't. And so you look at Trump, and I don't know how many he got in his last 3 elections, maybe 70 million, 75 million votes, something like that. Okay, so you give your power away, 75 million people, to a handful of people. In this case, executive orders like machine gun fire and Elon Musk, 2 people out of a country of 350 million or more. And yet, if those 75 million people said, we are no longer cooperating with our own enslavement, we are not going to do what you tell us to do when we can see that it's about controlling us. This is why you have to be streetwise, because it's easy to manipulate, we're seeing now. Then that would be unenforceable. You wouldn't be able to impose upon 75 million people that wouldn't cooperate. So what you do is you manipulate them to believe they're winning so that they can sit back and go, pew, it's over. Well, it isn't. It's just another stage of it. And if we would just put down, oh my God, put down the fault lines of political division and religious division, doesn't mean you don't have a belief system. Oh, be my guest. But that you put that aside and we unite upon what we agree on, and also we unite against a common threat. Because while we're fighting each other, that common threat is going to get what it wants. It's happening before our eyes. It's time to realize that all these different methods of manipulation are coming from the same source and the same force, and to put the fault lines down. And it's like the whole transgender thing. I have no problem with men putting dresses on if they feel to. I have a bloody problem when they tell me I have to address them according to their belief system when I don't agree with it. I have a problem when I'm told I have to use these pronouns or those pronouns. You use them, but I ain't using them because I don't think that that's what you are. Just my view, and I have a right to it. And if we could just be at peace with people being who they choose to be, so long, and this is the point, they don't seek to impose that on everyone else. And what we have is this, you see, this is a very important area. This desire that humans have to impose their beliefs and their will on other people. So you had the woke left seeking through the Biden governments, etc., to impose their will upon everyone else. No wonder there was pushback. No wonder there was resentment. But now the bloody right's got in, and it's seeking to impose its belief on the left. What you were complaining about that? Now you're doing it. It's because of this desire that people have. I find it weird and strange, of imposing your belief on other people. And if we just put it down, put the fault lines down, agree to disagree, but realize we're all in the gun sights of the same force, then we might find some unity to bring an end to this nonsense. Because, you know, Elon Musk says that this AI is inevitable. Well, he's putting up, this is one of the things that I noted about him before he bought Twitter.
Yeah.
Ray Kurzweil, when he talked about connecting humans to AI by 2030, it's already happening. He said that once that connection is made, AI will do more and more of human thinking until human thinking is basically negligible. What he meant was deleted. But what he said was that the humans would be connected to AI through the cloud. The cloud. What is the cloud? It's a vast technologically generated electromagnetic field. And this is meant to be global and the means through which humans are controlled. And I've written about this in detail in the books.
Mark of the beast?
Yeah, well, if you look at the COVID fake vaccine, the real reason for it, and then I'm in touch with different people around the world who are doing the blood analysis and finding these. It's gone quiet now in the mainstream, but they're finding them still and gathering these nano self-replicating systems that are building themselves. You can see it within the body. Now, if you have a cloud, an electromagnetic cloud through which you are passing frequencies that basically are the hive mind, because the brain, it works electrically, doesn't it? Electromagnetically, of course, you can connect it that way.
Yeah.
But you need a receiver in the body to receive those frequencies. That's what these self-replicating nano systems are all about. So I look at the towers. Okay, they're all part of this cloud. And notice that during COVID, when everyone was locked down, they rolled out all these 5G bloody towers all over the place. Certainly did in Britain, because obviously that was essential work to them. But you're not going to create a cloud to cover every inch of the planet with towers. So where do you have to do it from? You have to do it from space.
SpaceX.
Yeah, SpaceX and others coming online as well, but SpaceX is the leader, which is putting up thousands and thousands, eventually tens of thousands of low orbit satellites, beaming this cloud at the planet. You know, he's got this Starlink system, but now, because he's anti-system and anti-establishment, He's now done a deal with the Pentagon and government to have a military government version of Starlink. I think it's called Star Shield or something like that, which they can use independently. So you look at the contracts that he gets with his companies and the subsidies from the government. The irony of him saying we need to cut government waste is actually, well, that's just an excuse, is actually quite bizarre, really. And so you have this cloud being created, Kurzweil talked about, and it's the hive mind. And all the time he was boasting on Twitter all the time about new satellites going up. He stopped doing that now. I think he thinks, well, I better keep my gob shut, because they're starting to suss it. And they've gone on ever since, and they're going on and they're going on and they're going on. And the Federal Communications Commission has to give permission for those satellites. So inevitable, without those satellites, etc., in the towers too, but the satellites, this thing can't be created on the scale that they want it to in terms of control. But the FCC is giving him permission. And what's happened since Musk came to power? One of his mates and associates has been made head of the FCC. And also another one of his mates, David Sachs, one of this PayPal mafia with Peter Thiel, etc., and Musk. What is he doing now? He's been appointed by Trump as the government's AI czar and crypto czar. So all these people are being moved into place to push people forward to this AI dystopia. But what they're doing is covering it very well, it seems, by all these machine gun fire executive orders, which the people that would normally push back on that, hey, what are you doing, are being diverted by, oh, we're winning. And I would say this, you imagine if the Democrats had won this election and they were doing exactly the same. The right and the alternative media central core would be going absolutely apeshit. Alex Jones's veins in his neck would be bloody bulging in fury. But instead, he's just kissing Musk and Trump's ass every day.
He's praising them. And I actually, and I wanted to kind of bring it back to this alternative thing. I didn't want to interrupt. You were talking about the alternative media being hijacked and using people like Rogan and Alex Jones to kind of curb the people that would normally push back and say, oh, this is some BS, whatever, using them kind of because people that are, I guess, skeptical of the government are far more likely to trust someone like an Alex Jones or a Joe Rogan. And you look at someone like Alex Jones now, he's super pro-Musk, super pro-Trump, won't criticize them at all. And then I remember someone like posted like, hey, why are you, so supportive of these guys? And he was like, hey, well, if the people that came in and tried to destroy me, if a big gorilla came in and attacked them, I'm going to support that gorilla. What are your thoughts on, Alex Jones' switch up where he's aligning himself with people like Elon Musk, et cetera, who, I've said for a bit, he can't be trusted, and I kind of found this out myself when he took my verification away when I said speech that he didn't like, right? He's supposed to be a free speech guy, but then he went ahead and I was critical of immigration H-1B visas, and he took my check away, and that's kind of when I was like, okay, this guy's a fraud. What are your thoughts on Alex Jones supporting people like Elon Musk and being very reluctant to be critical of these individuals when he used to be a far-right dissident?
Well, I'll be honest, I'm disgusted. Because I've been doing this a long time. I've been doing it longer than Alex, but Alex has been doing it a long time. And I've only met him once. It was at a Bilderberg protest in Watford, England.
And he had you on like a year ago, didn't he?
2010, yeah, he did. Yeah, when I was calling out Musk.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he'd have me on again, but I'm going to wait for a few more events to happen first.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to keep going on there all the time because it's it's given the situation that's going on. I mean, it's just I shake my head every day, to be honest, when I see his posts and his eulogies and his ass kissing. But the thing is that he has called out over the years many things that needed calling out, absolutely, and you know, I acknowledge that, absolutely, I do. But what's happened in the last year or so is that he's transformed into a propagandist for these people who I say are shafting the population and diverting their attention with this machine gun fire. But the agenda is very, very clear to me and being confirmed all the time. And I think, you know, one of the things that I really, I looked at and I just shook my head. See, when Trump was doing his election campaign, he never mentioned anything about Canada and the 51st state. He never mentioned anything about acquiring Greenland, and he certainly didn't mention anything about getting rid of the Palestinians from Gaza and turning it into a seaside resort for the rich and famous. And back in it would be in the 1990s, I remember, the whole idea of the North American Union of Canada, the United States, and Mexico was circulating in the alternative media, and there were meetings of the elite pushing that agenda. And Alex Jones came out vehemently against it, and good on him. So did I. So did many other people. But when Trump, because Trump said it, God, that he wanted to absorb Canada into the 51st state, Alex Jones was saying, well, the Canadians should be given a vote on it. And it's interesting, you know, when you look at the technocracy maps and the from the like 1930s, and one of the leading proponents of the technocracy was Elon Musk's grandfather in Canada, by the way. And you look at the Club of Rome maps, the Club of Rome being part of this whole network that was created in 1968 to use environmental concerns, manipulated and otherwise, most of them manipulated, to justify centralization of power. Those maps break the world up into sections, like sectors. And when you look at them, they are either Mexico, the United States, and Canada, and Greenland, or they are the United States, Canada, and Greenland. So suddenly Greenland, very early on in the presidency, comes up because they're following the agenda of the global cult and the World Economic Forum. They're just doing it in a different way to scam the belief systems of those they are targeting. Because, you know, like I say, if Trump had not won and Harris had won, then they would not be able to get this through anything like as easily as they currently are, because the right, the alternative, as they call themselves, would have been all over the Harris administration for doing what Trump is doing.
Yeah, no, they would have went, like you said before, they would have went absolutely bonkers if, you know, the Democrats aligned themselves up with big tech who wants to control everything. And I find it interesting, too, because a lot of these big tech people, whether it's Zuckerberg, Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, whatever, all these guys voted for Hillary. All these guys are liberals. All these guys are left-leaning. But they obviously switched their whole setup, you know, once they knew that Trump was going to win. And they're like, all right, we need to get behind him so that he can go ahead and institute this policy. And then you got J.D. Vance, who was kind of the conduit that brought these tech guys in, these tech oligarchs, because Trump needed the money because he was facing all these lawsuits. And he was dealing with all the criminal cases, which obviously was very taxing on him. So he was like, okay, they're going to bring in J.D. Vance, who was a never-Trumper, and he's going to bring in all this tech money and the Silicon Valley money, and then bam, now MAGA or the Trump administration has been infiltrated by a bunch of tech bros that, quite frankly, are liberals, and they're using this, as a mode of control. And I've always thought that was a little interesting and weird. And that's kind of what we have. And then you look at what's going on with Gaza, like you said. And I do also want to say this too. Merrill Madelson, all these donors, Alex Karp, etc., Peter Thiel, all these guys are hardcore Zionists. And me and you were talking a little bit about the Zionist lobby and their influence and how they've, systematically tried to get you banned from countries and everything else like that. Can you talk a little bit about the Zionist lobby and its power?
Well, you see, I've been calling it out, not calling Jewish people as a whole out in totality, but calling out that which is driving Zionism. And I saw a clip of an interview with Jason Greenblatt, the head of the ADL, in which he's saying that all Jews are Zionists, which is the most extraordinary bloody nonsense.
That's a lie.
Yeah, absolute lie. So I would break up the Jewish community worldwide, which is very small, of course, very, very small by comparison with the 8 billion. I mean, it's just thousands. I would break them up into three groupings. You've got the inner core, which is basically, well, it's not basically, it is a cult. And ironically, that inner core, which I expose at length, absolute length in my books, is a force, a mentality that has absolute contempt for Jewish people. They are just a means to an end. And one of the ways that they reach that end is by saying, and you will have come across this, Myron, that when you challenge Israeli Zionist power, not least in America, in Britain, all over the world, you're saying that all Jewish people are doing, no. Saying you're bloody doing it. And then you've got the second group, and I do have a bit of sympathy here because, when I've looked at this over the years, studied this over the years, the level of mind control from cradle to grave that Jewish people go through from when they're tiny kids, not least in Israel, to fear the Palestinians, to hate the Palestinians, to see them as lesser than humans in some cases, many cases, and that mind control, which is really, really powerful and incessant, is driven and orchestrated by this inner core, this Zionist cult that runs it. And then you've got the third group, and I've got many people I know and respect in this group who are Jewish, but they can see it. And they don't agree with it. They don't want it. They don't want it to be done in their name. And so when you break down the fact that the Jewish population of America is about 2%, and if you take the American Jewish population and the Israeli Jewish population, and you just add them together and take them away from the rest of the world, Jewish population, the rest of the world is tiny in number, tiny. And yet, from this 2%, and I've gone into this in detail in my books with the names, whether it's the Obama administration, whether it's the Trump administration or the Biden administration, and so on and so forth, the ratio of Jewish people to positions of power in government, more and more in the positions of power, and before more one step back, is absolutely bloody fantastic. I would just say to people who haven't come across
It's
this,
insane.
go and look at the Biden administration and the main positions of of power and Secretary of State and Homeland Security, Treasury, all that stuff. Look at the ratio. It's fantastic, and obviously the same is happening in the Trump administration. Although he's appointed a lot of people who are not Jewish directly, but are vehemently pro-Israel.
Yeah, very.
And the ratio is absolutely amazing. And what I would say to people is, if they were Chinese, or they were black, or they were Indian, what would you say? You'd say, "Oh my God, what's going on?" So why don't you? Well, why don't you? Is because of this scam that this inner core uses, which is anti-Semitism. And when you've got Greenblatt saying all Jewish people are Zionists, and that to be anti-Zionist is to be anti-Jewish, that's because they want to bring Zionism into the mix, so that that is also considered anti-Semitic if you criticize Zionism, which is a political philosophy. And what has happened the moment Trump came to power? He said that he's going to introduce, because he's a free speech absolutist, Donald Trump, oh yes, he's going to introduce new laws regarding anti-Semitism. So the reason that anti-Semitism is used is to silence criticism, not of Jewish people in general, of this inner core that's driving the whole thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And when you look at like a lot of these people that, whether it's the tech bros, you look at the people that are involved with the push of AI, you look at the people that are involved in some of these forums, almost all of them are Zionists. And I was going to ask you this too, because you mentioned that Elon fits the World Economic Forum agenda, right? He ticks off a bunch of the things on the list. Can you kind of go through the people real quick and tell them what the WEF is, and then what these things are that he ticks off, why it's important? Because some people might not be familiar.
World Economic Forum, maybe it'd be good if I just briefly went through how this global cult is structured.
Please.
Okay. Imagine a spider's web around the world. And imagine that every strand in the web is either a secret society, a semi-secret group, or institutions and organizations we know in the public arena. In the center of the web is what I call the spider. That's seriously in the hidden. The strands immediately around the spider are the most exclusive secret societies. Many of them don't even have names, makes them harder to track. As you come out from the spider is generating the agenda for the world. As you come out, you still in the hidden, you start meeting the secret societies we do know about, like the Freemasons, but the inner core, not Fred and Bill down the lodge, and the Knights of Malta, the Knights Templar, the inner core of the Jesuit order, Opus Dei, and all that stuff, focused secret societies, like the one at Yale University, Skull and Bones, where the Bushes were members
Deny birth.
Became president, So this is how it works. And the idea is that this agenda from the spider comes through the hidden. Now, these secret societies, by their nature, are fiercely compartmentalized. I mean, look at them. They have degrees. What is a degree? It's a degree of knowledge that you're allowed to have. So a very few people in these secret societies have the real understanding of what they're about. The rest are not quite a shield, but pretty much. And so then you come out through this secret society level, and you meet in the web what I call the cusp. And the cusp is where the hidden part of the web meets the seen part of the web. So in that cusp, are the Bilderberg Group, the Council on Foreign Relations, the Trilateral Commission, the World Economic Forum, the Club of Rome. These organizations, their job is to take the agenda from the hidden and to play it out in the seen. And also in this, this cusp part of the web, you have this explosion of non-governmental organizations, many of them funded by the Soros family, and an explosion too of think tanks. And their job, again, is to take the agenda, although, again, all these are fiercely compartmentalized. Most of them won't know the big picture, and to play it out in the public arena through governments, through corporations, through Silicon Valley, through the World Health Organization, the World Trade Organization, and so on, Big Pharma. And so when you come out into the seen part of the web, everything seems random and apart from everything else. And to most people in these organizations that I've just mentioned, it will appear that like that to them. But again, it's fiercely compartmentalized. So if you go deep enough in these organizations, and you know, people like Zuckerberg and the people that own Google and YouTube and all these people, they will absolutely know how this web works. If you go deep enough in these organizations, you meet that level that attaches to the web. And at that point, all these organizations are the same organization working to the same agenda. So during COVID, when the World Health Organization announced its narrative for the world, load of old crap, you'll remember that Silicon Valley, your Facebooks and your YouTubes, etc., they announced that they were going to censor anyone that challenged or put forward another view of the World Health Organization narrative.
It was bad.
Now,
I remember that vividly. They took you down because of this, and London Real. It was absolutely wild. And if anyone made a video on COVID that wasn't someone that they approved, I remember they would put a banner, a warning banner under the video. Like, it was crazy.
Well, what happened to me is they demonetized me in 2018. So I go back a long way, but they took me off every major platform when I called COVID out in April 2020 as a complete hoax and something that didn't actually exist. Gone, right? So I did that interview with London Real, and half an hour after it finished, they took it down. After it had phenomenal
had views. A lot of views. I remember seeing it.
Yeah.
Where's Brian now, David?
Yep.
Where's Brian now, the owner of London Real?
Oh, he's still doing the same thing.
Oh.
Yeah, he's still doing the same thing. You just don't hear. He's into crypto and all this stuff now. But the thing is that on the face of it, the World Health Organization being defended by Silicon Valley, well, hold on a minute. You're the public square where we share opinions. What are you doing? But when you realize that if you go deep enough in the World Health Organization and deep enough into Facebook and Twitter and all of these organizations, Google, YouTube, you attach to the web. And so what you've got is the web defending the narrative of the World Health Organization. That's another expression of the web, not least through Bill Gates. And then again, COVID, you had this extraordinary situation where Pfizer and Moderna and others were going to people like the CDC and the FDA in America and the MHRA, similar thing in Britain. And they were asking for permission to use these apparently untested fake vaccines. Actually, they had been tested for their destructive nature long before, but not in terms of safety. And they would go to these CDCs, FDAs, and they would ask for permission to give these fake vaccines untested to younger and younger and younger people, right down to kids eventually. And they would get permission. Only once in the entirety of COVID and the vaccine, fake vaccine, did the British authorities push back. And even then that was overturned. And so you ask yourself, what are you doing? You're supposed to be government agencies protecting the population from these big pharma psychopaths. What are you doing? But once you realize that the FDA, the CDC, the MHRA are controlled by this, if you go deep enough into them, you'll hit the web. They're controlled by the same network, the same cult that controls big pharma. So what's happening is one aspect of the cult is asking another aspect of the cult for permission to advance a cult agenda of fake vaccinating everybody. And that's what's really happening. And so once you grasp this, once you see how it works, then you can understand things that other people can't understand. And this is the point that I'm trying to get across to these people. To your Rogans and your who won't interview me and your Russell Brands and your
I'm shocked you haven't been on Rogan yet. Like, I don't know why why won't he bring you on, man? Like, what the hell?
Well, 2009, I think he started his podcast, and he's never had me on. And people who've been on his show, I've met them over the years, and they've said, "What do you mean you've never been on Rogan?" Well, I'll call him. Of course you have to be on Rogan. Never hear from him again. And I made the point because he had Russell Brand on, and they were basically, talking about me briefly in not very positive terms, shall we say, Mr. Rogan. And I made the point, you never had me on. He's never. And someone called me and said, "I know the Rogan people. What do you mean you've never been on? I'll get in touch with them." Never heard him again. Never heard from him again. So there's obviously a reason for that, because if you've been doing this as I have for coming into my 36th year, then when the stuff hits the fan during COVID, at least during COVID, you would surely say, well, let's have this guy on and just see what he says about what he's researched over all these decades. No, none of it. Thingy, what do you call it? Won't have me on either. Tucker Carlson as well. And what I've been trying to get across to these people, and unfortunately, what's happened since COVID with this mainstream hijack, as I would call it, is that alternative media has actually regressed. Because, like I say, when I started out, and for a long time afterwards, there was no alternative media. It was a few disparate individuals trying to. I mean, I remember trying to communicate with bloody leaflets in the street you were handing out before the internet, and really got going. And so what you were seeing eventually was this alternative media starting to develop, and I was absolutely bloody delighted. And one thing that basically most of it grasped was it's a one-party state. Actually, because of this global cult, as I've talked about, it's a one-party world. And now, since this hijack, it's regressed back into the puppet show, left and right. The Democrats are the deep state, the right are anti-deep. Oh, come on. Blimey. And so what I've been trying to get across to them is you've got to think globally, because it's a global cult. This is not just about America. This is about a global agenda. And if you don't think globally, you're going to get scammed, because you won't see the totality and the scale of how it all connects. And so, what you've got now is Elon Musk. He's starting to push out into other countries. He touched on Britain. He's really pushing in Germany and what have you, Argentina with this guy Milei. And so it's not just America. This AI agenda is an agenda for the world. It's just that it's obviously happening to me anyway, in America now. So I'm focusing on that. But it's a global agenda. The whole thing is about everywhere being the same ultimately.
Can I ask a question real quick? So, well, make a statement. So I happened to have the honor of going to inauguration a couple weeks ago, and I was able to meet people from Trump's team, Elon's team, and someone very close to Elon. I was with for quite some time. He spoke about having knowledge of what's coming next with AI. And he mentioned a one world order, basically with one currency, one government, and also as well one food source or one food center that has all the food that distributes to people and alike. He also mentioned as well having 50-minute cities, which is cities that are all 50 minutes apart, as well as having electric cars only and no gas cars. But what's scary is that like that just means control to me, because that's basically like saying like, okay, you gave us all your power, all your access, and we'll take care of you. Because he mentioned before with AI coming as well, they're going to take away most of the jobs, which means you have to work for the people controlling the AI on the systems, right? So my thing is like, what's your take on that?
Here's the point. The more you centralize power, the more power there is at the center to dictate to everyone else.
Yep.
And so if you look at the centralization of power process over a long period, we once organized ourselves as humans in tribes, and the people in the tribe decided what the tribe did. Then there came a point where lots of tribes were brought together under what we call nations. Now a few people at the center of the nation are dictating to all the former tribes that form the nation. Then in places like the European Union, you had the centralization of power over basically the whole of Europe. I'm banned from nearly 30 European countries now because of they don't like what I say.
Damn.
Australia too. So then the next stage is where they want to go, which is a global government. And that global government is not planned to be elected people. See, if you look around the world, especially during COVID, but since too, the world is awash with political morons in positions of power. That is not an accident. What they want to do is, because it's all a perceptual game, they want to destroy confidence and trust in elected politicians so that people are open to them being replaced by technocrats and AI. And so what is Musk doing now? What is Musk and Trump doing now?
He's doing it right.
Destroying confidence in the current system so that people are open to having another system replace it, which will be the system that they're setting out to impose. It's all a mind game. And if you
very smart.
If you don't see that, then you're going to get scammed, and you're going to be cheering your own demise, and so many people are currently, and their children's demise and their grandchildren's demise, because those kids are going to have to live in a level of dystopia run by AI that in known human history anyway, we've never even come close to before.
What are your thoughts on, because me and you talked about this a little bit before, obviously they said they're going to declassify the 9/11, Epstein, and JFK files, and I find it interesting the woman that's responsible for declassifying it is a person who is Jewish and, lied about her heritage and didn't really necessarily tell anyone, and she's a former stripper. We know that there's Israeli links with all of these different events, and she's a big supporter of Benjamin Netanyahu as well, so she's a Zionist. What are your thoughts, I guess, on them finally declassifying these documents, and why has it been so long?
Well, why has it been so long? Because they don't want us to see them. And why do you need a task force led by this 35-year-old lady Luna? Why do you need it? And who is a Messianic Jew? That's what she identifies as. I saw a post today from a site called APAC Tracker, which is looking at how almost all of these people in the task force have received money from APAC, which of course is the big lobby group for Israel in the United States. Now, I go back in terms of identifying a Israel connection to the JFK assassination to 1995, and a book called "And the Truth Shall Set You Free." It's in there. And when I wrote I've written 2 books about 9/11. Alice in Wonderland and the World Trade Center disaster, that came out in 2002. But another one where I spent a whole year just researching in enormous detail. It's called The Trigger, big book. First half demolishes the official story of 9/11. A bloody child could do it, really. But the second half looks at who did it. And Israel, Mossad, and the IDF, etc., are all over it. And Shin Bet too, the domestic Israeli intelligence agency. They're all over it. I mean, all over it. And so who knows, but if it comes out, these are the files, and it doesn't talk about an Israeli connection, I wonder if it will, given that Trump is owned by them, then it's a farce, and it's fakery, because they're massively involved in it. Not least 9/11, and also the Epstein files. I mean, Epstein was. I mean, I've talked to many women now, young girls then, who were involved with Epstein, and it's blatantly obvious it was a Mossad blackmail operation. Other things too, but certainly that. And if that doesn't come out, then it's another fake and another farce. So we'll see.
Yeah, I literally tweeted today because Paulina Luna, she put out a tweet saying, "Oh, the truth is going to come out," blah, blah. And I said, and I literally tweeted underneath her, I commented on her tweet, I said, if we don't see the Israeli connections, we're not going to, we don't believe, we know you guys are hiding something. Because it's obvious at this point, when you look at, you connect the dots with all the, Israeli influence that was involved with 9/11 and JFK, and they stood to gain quite a bit. I would argue they gained more from 9/11 than we did with, toppling Saddam Hussein and the Iraq War.
They gained massively. I mean, of course, that's one of the great questions. Whenever anything happens, and whenever we're given a official version of it, the question is, who benefits? Who benefits from this happening? And who benefits from me believing what you're telling me about what's happened? Yeah. And who benefits when you ask that question? I mean, who benefited from 9/11? Israel more than anyone.
Yeah.
So what happened as a result? Netanyahu, I cover this in my book, The Trigger, which is highly, highly detailed. How Netanyahu and this Zionist cabal in America were targeting Saddam Hussein long before they actually went in there. It was part of an agenda. Because if you remember, the project for the New American Century,
the Clean Break Memo,
was totally Zionist controlled.
Yep.
They produced a document in September of 2000, which is a bit like Project 2025 in a way, listing what they wanted to happen during the incoming Bush administration, Bush administration. And what they wanted was to regime change a series of countries. And what happened is that they were ticked off. They wanted to regime change Libya. They wanted to regime change Iraq, etc. And they did. And it was all part of a plan. And so that plan would never, ever have been possible to justify without 9/11. But once 9/11 happened, that horrific day of death and destruction, because these people are psychopaths. This is the thing to get across. When people say, "Oh, they would never do that," oh no, they'd get off on doing that. We're talking about a level of psychopathy that is off the Richter scale. How do people not see that when Bill Gates has wreak such death and destruction with his fake vaccines and his,
Depopulation.
I mean, what level of lack of empathy? Because if you look at what's called the hair test, named after the bloke who invented it, of psychopathic traits, at the top are lack of empathy, no empathy, and no compassion. And I call empathy the fail-safe mechanism of human behavior. Because if you can put yourself in the feelings of those you're affecting, that is going to substantially limit what you'll do, because you have this empathy with the effect you're having. Imagine you have no empathy. These people have no empathy. They cannot manifest that state of being.
Yeah.
So they have no limits, because there's no emotional consequence for them of what they do, and therefore they will do that.
David, can I add to your point? So Morgana spoke about a lot of things in his lodge and his Masonry friends, like about what they would do, and they would talk about talking to spirits above them and what they would tell them to do on Earth. And they spoke about like having no emotion for the cattle, the chattel, which is like us regular humans, because we're just pawns in the whole game here. And they spoke about having like the mindset of look at them as basically like livestock, basically. Like they're used for your plans only, and that's it. And it goes towards what you're saying, because their whole plan is the agenda to control us. So at some point it's like, okay, you're expendable here. Let's start war over here. Let's do what we need to come, like get our goals done. So my thing is like, knowing that information, like, what do we do? Because I feel like it's almost like we're in this system right now and we're stuck because they've been doing this for thousands of years. And how do you stop that from happening? I don't know what to do. What do you say?
Well, I've gone into this in great detail in my books. The foundation of all human control is control of perception.
Yeah.
So the first thing to do is we've got to take our perceptions back. We've got to get ourselves a blank sheet of paper and put aside all political belief, put aside all religious belief, all preconceived belief and ideas. And whatever gets on that piece of paper, as a not a belief, but a way that you're seeing the world currently, because we've got to stay fluid in that sense, must earn its place there. And it must earn its place with, for instance, with evidence. People have said over the years that going way back, that the way out of here is knowledge, and it is. And I'll tell you how it works. Because knowledge leads to perception. The greater the knowledge, the greater the breadth of perception that you can have. So we have two worlds. We have the world of the cult, and we have the world of the population.
Yeah.
And the world of the cult passes on through its secret society degrees and initiations, advanced knowledge of the agenda and where it's going. And that guy you spoke to obviously has some idea. And also, crucially, what's passed on is the nature of reality itself, which is nothing like we experience as we experience it. Now, this same cult, not least in America through the Rockefellers, cult to their DNA, created the sources of information and communication for the population. They created the education system, which is programming system. They created the media and own the media, et cetera, et cetera. And so what they're doing is passing on this advanced information through the secret society network.
Yeah.
And making sure, by controlling the communication of the population, that they stay in ignorance of what they know. And what happens, my goodness me, I know this one. When you work to uncover what they know, and you say to the population, this is what's going on and this is how they're doing it, because of the limitation and the sense of normal that's been programmed by the cult into the population in general, that population says, you're mad, you're crazy.
Oh, you're crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but what you do, I mean, that's what I do anyway. You just keep going no matter what they throw at you and ridicule you and abuse you, because, you know, at the end of the day, you want the best outcome for people, even though they're abusing you and ridiculing you, ironically. But that's just the way it is. And so you have this, for instance, if you can control the population's sense of the possible, and you can limit it when what's possible is vastly beyond that. When you start saying this is what they're doing and this is how they're doing it, and they're using this technology and that technology or whatever, that sense of the possible says that's impossible, that can't be done, but it can. And if you can keep the nature of reality from the population, you bloody got them. Because if you said to most people, when you look out through your eyes into a room, whatever, can you see everything in the space you're looking at? Most people will say, yeah, of course I can. Don't be daft. No, you can't. All you can see is a tiny band of frequency. That's all you can see. And this reality is a band of frequency. And it interpenetrating the same space that we are experiencing are other dimensions of reality on different wavelengths, just like radio and television stations sharing the same space without interfering with each other unless they're very close on the dial. And so I've said, you know, many times, children should be told at the first age that they can grasp it, but when they look through their eyes, they're not seeing everything in that space. They're only seeing what this human body, what I call a biological computer, decodes. And that is a narrow band of frequency called visible light. So mainstream science says that the electromagnetic spectrum, which is basically our experience reality, is 0.005% of what exists in the universe in terms of energy in all its forms. Visible light, which is all that we can see, is a tiny smear of the 0.005%. Some say it's as high as 0.5%, doesn't matter, it's tiny. And so when, for instance, people say, I saw this entity and it kind of just manifested in front, out of nowhere, the end of my bed. Or I saw this UFO, mate, it came out of nowhere and then it disappeared into nowhere. Well, people go, because of the suppression of knowledge, that's impossible. What are you on? You've been drinking, what's going on? But it's so simple to explain, because we can only see this visible light frequency band. So when something enters it, to the observer, it seems to have come out of nowhere. And when it leaves, it seems to have disappeared into nowhere. It hasn't disappeared. It's just left the frequency band that we can actually see. And therefore, going back, way back now, 30 odd years, 35 years, when I started talking about the fact that this global cult was operating in this human frequency band on behalf of a non-human force operating in another dimension that's very close.
Yes.
Then, you know, people obviously said it was crazy, although more and more people are starting to see it now. The point being that this non-human force is manipulating human society via this global cult, other ways too, but via this global cult, which is obviously operating within our frequency band. Now, this explains a lot of things. In the early 90s, mid-90s, I started to realize that these rich and famous cultists that I was uncovering were taking part in satanic bloody ritual and human sacrifice ritual, often kids. Stunning. And obviously you ask the question, why? What are these people doing? And then you look back through into the ancient world, and you see people openly around the world doing sacrifice rituals to the gods. And what the penny drops that the gods, under different names in different cultures, obviously they're different names in different cultures, that they were doing their sacrifices to are the same gods in this other dimension that these people today are doing their human sacrifice to. And this whole thing in the ancient world of sacrificing young virgins to the gods, that was code for kids. And they're still bloody doing it now on an enormous scale around the world. And that's where many, not all, but that's where many of these trafficked kids end up.
Yeah. And abortions too. It's more subtle though.
Yeah.
Point.
And guys, just so you guys know, the books that he's mentioned, I went ahead and put a link if you guys want to go ahead and support him and get some of these books. The reveal is out right now. I put the link right at the top of the description so you guys can go and check out some of the books that he's referencing. He has a bunch of books. Dave, I was going to ask you this. So when it comes to, because we talked about the infiltration of alternative media to kind of turn off the, people that are distrusting of the government, because if they hear from a Rogan or a Jones, they might feel a bit better about it. Who are some people that people need to kind of listen to with a grain of salt in the alternative media? Because alternative media is taking over, and no one trusts mainstream media anymore. So now, as alternative media becomes the main media, who are some people that guys should be listening to? But listen to it with a grain of salt.
Well, I wouldn't trust Rogan to tell me the time in the same room full of clocks. His softball interview of Trump just before the election was classic. His best mate seems to be Musk, and he has these people on like Peter Thiel and Mark Andreessen and David Sachs. All these people, all people that are involved in what's going on at the moment in creating this AI agenda. He's talked. I remember seeing him in terms of supporting the AI agenda. People like Tucker Carlson, I find interesting because one of the things I've learned big time over the years is that these cultists and this non-human force working through them is bloody stupid, basically. I mean, they wouldn't be doing what they're doing unless they were morons. But what they are brilliant at is manipulating human perception. They're brilliant at it, and they're also brilliant at this. And I'm sure they use technology for this as well. Of predicting that if you provide stimulus A, an event, an emotional reaction, whatever, you will get consequence and you'll get reaction B.
Out of chaos comes order.
Yeah. So you see, this is why I keep saying to people, don't think in black and white, because they don't think in black and white. You've got to think like they do. So I used to watch Tucker Carlson on Fox News. I used to watch him every morning on YouTube of his show. And I didn't watch him because he was cutting edge. I watched him because he was more cutting edge than anyone else in the mainstream in America. And you could get up to speed with a few things that you wouldn't get from other people. And then, of course, he's working for Murdoch at Fox. And then suddenly he was fired. Now, the black and white way of seeing that is he was going too far and they've fired him. Well, I can tell you from studying this cult and its mentality that it don't think like that. It would have known that if they fired him on, I'm not saying he knew about this, by the way. If they fired him on Fox, he would immediately become a alternative media superstar. And by this time, Musk has got X. So immediately there was another platform. And what happened is they would have known his audience vastly, fantastically increased compared with what it was at Fox. And Tucker Carlson, you see, what I would say is there are people that I believe are absolutely knowingly doing it in the alternative media, but there are others who just haven't got a clue what's happening. And so Tucker Carlson is, he's a right-wing former Fox presenter. He sees things as left and right. He doesn't see the big picture at all. And therefore, what you do is, okay, you've got your people in there that know exactly what they're doing, okay, but you have others who you just take their mentality, you take their level of knowledge, and then you promote the hell out of them in terms of financing, in terms of algorithms. And they hold the line, what I call the barricade brigade. They hold the line of here and no further, without actually knowing that's what they're doing. They think they're doing the right thing. And you know, and this is the other thing, is that so many people in this alternative media have the hijack part of it. They've realized that if they promote certain things and don't question certain things, well, they get invited to Mar-a-Lago. They get lots of money and
we snuck in there yesterday. We snuck. Right?
David.
We were in there yesterday, but I'll tell you this: I don't think anybody wanted to talk to us while we were there. People didn't want to talk to us, man.
I mean, this is the thing. I mean, wasn't it? You know, Flynn and Brand and stuff was going on there.
Yeah.
But this is the thing. You don't have to have people that all know what they're doing. They just have a certain mentality, and you promote the hell out of them, and they'll hold the line. And you know, for me, this is my view, right? I don't think you're a journalist if you promote a political party and a political persuasion. I say and I say this to mainstream journalists with all this woke stuff that they've gone on promoting. I'm either neither one side or the other. I call them both out because it's a one-party state. I'm aware of that. So I don't think that if a journalist, alternative or otherwise, promotes a political party or a political ideology, I don't think they're a journalist. I remember when I was in mainstream journalism, a long time ago now, that I was staggered that colleagues were having cozy dinner parties with politicians around their bloody house. What are you doing? You shouldn't be getting that close to them. You're there to call them out if it's necessary, not to promote them. This is the thing about, Alex Jones. I mean, he's not just promoting them, he's on his knees with his tongue out. What are you doing, man? You should be calling out what needs calling out, and doesn't matter whether it's left or right or center or any of it. That's your job. And so we've turned the mainstream of the alternative media into a propaganda arm of a certain mentality. And it's a very dangerous thing.
David, real quick. So we spoke about the entity that speaks to these people, basically the occultists. Do you believe in the Bible by chance?
The Bible, this is another thing. I'm going to have to go in a sec. Where are we? Yeah. This is another thing, you see. If you believe in a religion or a political philosophy without question, where there's no way that you are going to question it. Then what happens immediately is that there are large no-go areas where you won't go. Because you know that if you go there, your belief system, whether it's political or religious, is under threat and under challenge. You ain't going to go there. I know this. I've been doing this a long time. I've seen this happen to so many people. So there's no way that you are going into researching what's happening in the world with an open mind, because you haven't got one. There is a belief system that you will not accept could be moved on at all.
Okay.
So when you're talking about the Bible, I tell you what I think the problem is with the Bible. That it's called the Word of God, because there are some stupendously brilliant lines in the Bible, really brilliant. But then there's a load of stuff that's completely contradictory. And we, for instance, I saw a video that Russell Brand put up recently, where he's saying, well, being a Christian, as he is now, he says, being a Christian, I have to accept that there is a big connection between Jewish people and the land of Israel. Well, where the bloody hell did that come from? I mean, are we really now deciding what happens in 2025 because of what's in the Old Testament? And by the way, the God of the Old Testament is a bloodthirsty, bloody tyrant. And so what I'm saying is, because it's said to be the word of God, and God cannot be wrong, then somehow you've got to square the circle between the brilliant lines, and there are some brilliant ones, and that which contradicts everything. And for me, that's it's basically an example of what I'm saying, that take what feels right, take what you think is justified, and leave the rest. And I do that with everything, whether it's the Bible or anything, because no one in all of history has got everything right. So there's things to accept if you feel right, and they're backed by your own research, and there's things to leave alone because they don't make sense. And like I say, if you have a rigid belief system that is immovable, then they gotcha.
Yes.
Because this cult doesn't care what you believe, as long as you believe it rigidly without question, because then the perception is theirs.
I asked because in the Bible it talks about Revelation, what's to come at the very end. It speaks about having the mark of the beast, the one world order, how there's going to be a 7-year period of time where there's going to be 3 years of bliss and then 4 years of chaos right after, pretty much. And it's almost like if it's telling us the future because it's happening right now. So I asked because from what I've understood from what's being told to the elite is that they're being told what to do by this entity, but it's leading into the end times of the Bible by opposite attraction. So what's happening is the Bible says one thing, but they're doing the opposite, but leads to the same end result, which is the Armageddon, the battle of the last days, and it's of course the one world order under that rule. But my thing is like they're welcoming in Antichrist, but obviously speaking, we don't know who that is. But to me, it's so on point. I can't question how on point it is.
Right. Well, I am going to have to go in a minute because I've been up since 5 o'clock and it's now gone 9 o'clock at night.
Yeah, no worries.
But the point is, it's something I've written about and talked about. What they're doing, and it's seriously happening out of Israel, is they're taking biblical prophecies and they're making them appear to happen. This brings on board Jewish believers, and it brings on board an enormous amount of Christian believers.
Yes.
And so one of the prophecies they are making happen.
Red heifer.
The heifer, because where's that supposed to lead? What they want, and this has been the plan all along, is to demolish the Alaska Mosque on what Jews and Christians call Temple Mount, and replace it with a rebuilt third, quote, Solomon's Temple.
Temple, yes.
Now, the heifer thing, the heifer born in Israel, never had a yoke round its neck and all this.
Blemishes, nothing.
Well, they brought their heifers in from Texas, apparently. I mean, talk about making it happen. The point is, if you look at the comments of Mike Huckabee, now the Trump ambassador to Israel, and Hegseth, the defense secretary, they and others support. They've made speeches supporting this third temple. Now, if a few years ago you had said that, people would go, "You're bloody mad, mate." Can you imagine the Muslim reaction? It'd be a bloody bloodbath if they tried to do that. Now look at it. You've got the West Bank, eventually during the Trump administration, being annexed to Israel. You've got the settlers and the IDF taking over more and more of the West Bank, what's left of it for Palestinians. You've got the devastated Gaza, with Trump saying he wants to get them into another country. And you've got the IDF in a position of enormous power over the Palestinian people in general. Suddenly, taking over Israel, and then eventually the greater Israel, of course, and taking over Jerusalem in its entirety so that you can build that temple and remove that mosque, becomes suddenly possible, or at least foreseeable. And so a lot of Christians look at all this going on, and they're saying, it's biblical prophecy, it's God. Well, no, it's Netanyahu and his bloody mates who are doing it, and people but much more powerful than him within the cult in Israel that are making it happen. And again, there's some fantastic things in the Bible. There really are. But take the good bits and leave some of the others, because you're being manipulated through them. It's very important that we hold our perceptions and don't just accept what we're told without question. Because once you start questioning things, it's amazing how the belief systems of the past suddenly start to dismantle before your eyes.
Yeah,
fair enough. Dave, it was awesome. I know we're short for time. We'll have to set up another one of these talks and go deeper into some other topics. I put your links there, but can you tell the people where they can find you and support your work?
Yes.
Well, I've got a Twitter page, X page now. It's shadow banned like hell, mind. But I've got davidicke.com. That's my main website, and that's where you can get the books. And the books are for North America. They are sent from North America, so you get them ever so quick, like 2 days or so. They're not coming from Britain, and they are. I've written nearly 30 books now. Some of them very, very detailed and big books, and others smaller books, not small but smaller. And it's been an extraordinary journey, if you like, from 1990 when I started, and seeing the scale of what we're looking at get bigger and bigger and bigger. But this is the point, and I go into this in the books. The more you understand the scale of it, the more you understand the answers to it. If you stay in the barricade, well, what is there? Vote for Trump or stockpile weapons. But when you see the greater picture and how it's all being done, then you realize there is another way. And I go into that in the books.
Awesome. He is David Icke. Thank you so much for coming on the show, man. It's been
a real pleasure, Myron. Thank you very much.
No, it really has. And I wanted to, really just let you be able to speak uninterrupted and get all your thoughts out there. Because I hate these people that try to come in and like, oh yeah, let me go ahead and just try to challenge the views. I think it's more important for people to see your perspective and then kind of make their own assessment based off of what they hear uninterrupted. And I'm glad that we're able to kind of have that conversation so people can, or our audience can kind of get used to your viewpoint. So when we bring you on for a follow-up or something like that, they'll know.
Yeah, great.
So no, thank you so much, man, for coming on the show.
Thanks, mate.
Thank you so much.
Off to bed now.
All right,
Thanks
man.
a lot.
Get some rest. I know it's UK time over
See you
there.
later. Bye.
All right, bye.
Cheers.
All right, Fresh, I'll end the stream on this end over here, man. So take it easy. Later, guys.
Later.
All right, chat. So hold on one sec. Let me I know you guys could probably hear me, but let me just get the camera on here. Give me one sec, man. Give me one sec, chat. You guys are probably like, what's going on? All right. I'm here, ninjas. Don't worry. Okay, guys. So I am going to go ahead. I'm going to end this stream, and then I'm going to be going live on Myron Gaines X in about 38 minutes. Okay, we're going to be reacting to a bunch of different things. I got a lot of things to cover with you guys. I haven't had a Myron Gaines X episode in a bit. We're going to be covering the Israel-Iran strike. We're going to be covering Kash Patel, Hannity interview, planes crashing, shootings in Miami Beach by them boys, okay, with the fucking Jews. We're going to talk about Mayor Adams' case being dismissed and how the Trump administration is using immigration as leverage. We're going to talk about ASAP Rocky. And, of course, we're going to react to the Michael Knowles Jubilee stuff. So we got a lot to cover, chat. A lot. I might not even be able to get to all of it. But since we did our Fresh Fit early, it'll be a longer stream on Myron Gaines X. So make sure that you guys go ahead and, have it ready. Let me give you guys the Rumble link right now. I don't have a thumbnail yet, but here's the link. Put this in your calendars, ninjas. I'm going to be live on YouTube and all the other platforms. I hope you guys enjoyed that David Icke interview, man. I've been waiting for it for a minute. So we're going to be live on YouTube, Rumble, Castle Club, etc. As usual, 5 p.m. We're going to go live at 5. All right, guys, so I'm going to go ahead, walk Frank a little bit, get a quick little snack. I don't know if I have time to hit the gym now, but I'll probably hit the gym before we do after hours. So I'll do my stream, and then we'll go ahead. You know what? Fuck it. Maybe I will hit the gym. I'll do my stream, and then we're going to go ahead and have Jack Doherty on tonight for girls, for after hours. Okay, guys? So we'll definitely be bringing Ike on. Guys, again, the link is right here for the stream that's coming up. I'll pin it for you guys. Okay, we're going to be covering a bunch of stuff. It's going to be a longer stream because we don't have to worry until like 8, 9 o'clock. So it's going to be a long stream, and I haven't been on air for a bit, guys. So I'm definitely going to be catching you guys up. Again, we're going to cover Iran-Israel strike, Kash Patel, Hannity, and Trump interview with Elon Musk. All these planes crashing, Jews shooting each other in Miami Beach, Mayor Adams, ASAP Rocky, and then the Michael Knowles stuff. I don't know if we'll get to all of it, but we'll definitely be able to cover a good amount of it. All right? Yeah, we're going to bring Jack Doherty on with some bitches for tonight on After Hours, guys. So it's going to be a good time. Let's see here. What else do we got? Oh, let me read some chats. We got here, MD says, found David Icke back in 2020 during the COVID stuff. He is the one to kind of actually send me down the red pill path. Salute to him for staying true ever since the 80s and 90s. Salute FNF. Absolutely, bro. Absolutely. I want to bring him on. You know what I mean? David Icke, do you have any knowledge of the DMT psychedelic experience and how it pertains to everything you're referring to? Do you believe it's positive or negative experience? Sorry, bro. He's gone now, but we can bring that up on another podcast interview for sure. So yeah, guys. Link is here. Dropping it in the chat for you guys. So we'll be back in about 30 minutes or so. I'll be back. Okay, ninjas? Love you guys. I'm going to end the stream here. Tune in to Myron Gaines X on Rumble and on YouTube. We're going to cook. It's going to be a great stream. Lot to cover on there. Let's get into it. Love you guys. Peace.